Hey guys, Bank of Bricks here. I've been a fan of Space Police ever since my introduction to the third theme in the late 2000s. After that point, I've gotten more and more interested into the other iterations of Space Police. And to be truthful, Space Police is what really launched me into being a lifelong fan of the LEGO space themes and sub-themes. So today, I want to introduce you to an idea of mine. Space Police Year Zero. The idea is, what if the Space Police theme was introduced in the late 70s along with the classic space theme? How would the builds change? And what about the figures? Before I continue any further, I think I should delve a bit into the history of Space Police. Space Police can trace its roots back to 1986. Some prototype sets were designed, made up of a majority of black pieces along with green and trans red. This first concept had a much more militaristic look to it. The first theme, retroactively called Space Police 1, came about in 1989 and was intended to combat the criminal Blacktron faction, along with defending the civilian faction, Futuron. Vehicles in this line were made up of blue, black, and trans red pieces. The Space Police themselves were very simple in design, looking very close to the Futuron figures. A total of 7 sets were released. In 1992, Blacktron received an upgrade, known as Blacktron Future Generation. So in order to keep up with them, the Space Police had to evolve. Space Police 2 was introduced this time, made up of black, red, old light gray, and trans green. Space Police 2 was notable for being the first space line to replace the standard smiley face with more detailed prints. The figures were primarily green with white and black, along with the word Space Police printed on the chest. The police chief had a black vest with the theme's initials on it, along with having red epaulets. In total, there were 7 sets. Space Police wouldn't return until 2009, with its third incarnation. Unlike its previous iterations, this theme was a reboot, completely lacking any connection to the space themes of the past. And with almost no reference to Blacktron, the Space Police in this theme would be hunting down alien criminals of many different varieties. The sets were primarily made of white, with trans blue and red lights, and trans blue windscreens. The vehicles were often equipped with trans green flickfire missiles. The figures of the officers themselves were mainly gray and ditched the old style of helmet, using trans red for their visors. In total, for this theme, there were 15 sets. Now that you have the history of the theme, let me further explain my goal with Space Police Year Zero. I want to remake sets from across each of the 3 lines to fit in with the classic sets from the late 70s and early 80s. To demonstrate this, here's the Crater Catcher. This mock, or my own creation, is a demake of the Raid VPR or Raid Viper. I've changed the name to be more in line with the early space sets. As you can see, this isn't a total demake, as it's not made at all how it would have been in the past. My goal was to emulate the more classic style, while being able to use modern parts from my collection. The colors of the build are light bluish gray and trans yellow, along with this unfortunate blue hinge piece, which I sadly don't own in gray. I wanted to replicate the rounded design of the wings at the front, so I placed them on these simple gray hinge pieces that are angled down. I translated these missile holding pieces in the mid-back section of the ship, removing the missiles. I felt that it wasn't really part of LEGO's MO at the time to have such obvious weapon on the vehicles. I did keep the lights on this section. I just turned the red and blue into yellow. I kept the small wing near the rear end of the ship, and changed the engine at the back. The engine is now a valve piece with a cone piece. This part of the ship is where it strays the most. I just thought this kind of looked cool. Moving back to the front section of the ship, I've kept these 2 blasters. They can be weapons, or they could just be lights. I feel that these speculative parts of the ship were a big part in some of the older space sets. It's up to your own imagination on what these parts really are. The cockpit section can open up, and it has room for 1 figure. It even works with the air tank attached. Speaking of figures, let's move on to our custom one. I made this simple design with a solid black torso and legs, along with white hands, air tank, and classic style helmet. And of course, I kept the signature smile. This figure is heavily inspired by the old biker cops from many of the classic police sets. I think it looks great. It's simple and distinctive from the other classic space astronauts, while still fitting in with their designs. I'm very proud of how this build came out, and love the clean look of it, which is definitely helped by all the smooth tile pieces. There are plenty of places I can go with this in the future. I've got some ideas on how I could demake the Blacktron figures and sets. Maybe in the future I'll expand to Futuron, or maybe even Mtron. I'm definitely going to make more demakes in the future. There are almost 30 Space Police sets, so there's plenty of potential. I'd love it if any of you joined in too. Add me on Instagram and use the hashtag SpacePoliceYear0 so I can see your designs. Thank you guys so much for 500 subscribers. I'm glad you've been enjoying my videos, and I can't wait to make more on the space themes, my creations, and much more. If you liked this video, leave a like. And if you want to see more LEGO content in the future, subscribe. I'd appreciate it. I'll see you next time.